Hey, good evening, good evening, good evening again, man. I just want to thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy for another episode of the Conversation 98. And I'm truly excited about tonight again and grateful and thankful for another opportunity to be before you today. And I just hope everybody's been doing well. Um, Back at home right now and did some traveling. So thank God for some traveling mercy. Thank God for his continued blessings um, and being there with my family and I during this time. Very well appreciated. But man, looking forward to the conversation tonight. Looking forward to sharing this with you guys and looking forward for the interaction. Um, won't be before you long tonight, but like I do every week, just sharing this with some people. Once I get done sharing, we're gonna get right into the conversation. Uh, but I hope everybody's doing well. Very excited about uh, what the week has to bring. Looking forward to uh, just another week and uh, looking forward to meeting with people and not only meeting with people, but this just the weekly interaction. I take pride in that because it's something that I have fun in doing. But again, man, thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy. But we're gonna get right on to it tonight. Um, uh, uh, just just continue to from me myself personally. I want to thank everybody that's been your thoughts and your prayers for our family during this time of bereavement, the loss of my big brother. And I truly appreciate all. And I don't take that lightly. It means a lot. From some cards, phone calls, texts, uh, messages. It does mean a lot. And I'm thankful and grateful for that. But man, we're going to get right on to it tonight because the night topic. Um, Hey, good evening, Miss Geraldine. How you doing? Tonight's topic, man, is something that shout out to my brother Freddie, who happy belated birthday to you. Had a conversation, and it sparks through that conversation. It sparks. It gave me the inspiration for this show tonight. So I wanted to get on into it, and I think this one is going to be a good conversation because I think there's something that we all is imperative that we all learn to manage and we all learn to deal with in our lives because it is what it is. It's the truth. But what we're going to talk about tonight, uh, we're just talking about learning to avoid the dangers of getting too comfortable and taking people for granted. And because if we really think about it, right, a lot of times in our lives, a lot of people that we're closest to, a lot of people that we're connected to, they feel like they're taken for granted. And the reason why they feel like they're taken for granted because we get too comfortable. We become too comfortable with their consistency. We become too comfortable with their consistency of them always being there. We become too comfortable for their consistency to be always be able to depend on them. We become too comfortable with the consistency of knowing that they are going to do what they say they're going to do. And it becomes second nature. And what happens with that is we have to realize that it is dangerous to get to a space to where we start to take people for granted, right? Because allow ourselves to get too comfortable and not appreciate them. That is a dangerous place to be, and that's something that we need to make sure that we look at, and take inventory of. Because the reality is, we're all guilty of it. We're all are guilty. We all can find ourselves at a place where we have done that before. Even myself, I'm guilty of that, and I try to make it a point to uh, let people know that hey, I appreciate them. I appreciate them. I appreciate what they do for me. They didn't have to do that for me because this is the reality. And I think a lot of us don't think about it, but this is a reality. Um, one of the ways to make sure that we don't get too comfortable and take people for granted is come to the realization that people don't have to do the things, or many people don't have to do the things that they do for us. They don't have to do it. So when somebody don't have to, when they do not have to do something and they choose to do it consistently, we should be cognitive enough to learn to appreciate that consistency of those efforts. We should just be able to say, you know what, they don't have to do that for me, but they choosing to do it for me. So I can take the time to acknowledge that and appreciate it. Because many times we don't do that. We just start to feel entitled like they should do that. And just because, and once we accept the fact that people don't have to do it, it really helps us get to a space where we become more grateful. We become more grateful because we realize when somebody don't have to do something and they choosing it, it's something to appreciate. So we should do that. We should do that. Because one of the other thing with that is we allow ourselves to get too comfortable because we don't like dealing with our own selfish nature. Because we make everything about us and we look at what we're getting and we become comfortable in as long as we're getting what we're getting. But many people allow their selfishness to take over to where they never even take the time to consider what somebody else is doing for them. Like the small things. And I'm talking about the small things about considering you with something to eat, considering your preference, if you have a preference for something to eat, considering you in the morning or making you some coffee, because they know you like coffee. So when you get up in the morning, your coffee is made, considering you cranking up the car and letting the car run to warm up so you can get up in a warm car. Like those small things. But many people take those for granted because guess what? They start to feel like the people supposed to do that. And a lot of times they don't. They're just choosing to do that. They're choosing to do that. So we got to stop allowing people in our lives to burn themselves out doing for us while we refusing to even acknowledge them, or while we even refusing not only to acknowledge them, but we're refusing to even show a level of appreciation. And I'm not talking about every little small thing somebody do. Yo, thank you, thank you, thank you. No, but when you appreciate somebody, it is reciprocated or is communicated even in your actions. Even nonverbal communication is reciprocated. And it's not hard to do when you are deliberate about observing and showing your appreciation to other people. The reason why it becomes hard for a lot of people because some people just become entitled and feel like, well, they always know it to be there. So it's like that. Cool. And many of us, we're like that with God. God always come through with us and we just take him for granted until we find ourselves in a hard position. And then when we find ourselves in a hard position and we have to go through some stuff and we realize it's like, dang, that's when we know, dang, God was there for us. And the same thing with other people. We have to lose them to learn to appreciate them. And why? And that's the question, right? That's the question because like learning to avoid the dangers is when we start getting too comfortable and not take people for granted, we begin to lose those people that were truly beneficial to us in our lives. We begin to lose those people. We allow relationships to erode because we don't appreciate what those people do for us. It's so many invaluable lessons learned. Like a lot of times when you have good parents, when you have good people in your life and you always had that, it is easy for you to take that for granted, like they're supposed to do that when you've never even been exposed to not having it. And many of us end up losing it or having that access restricted before we even get to a space to realize exactly what we have. And as a saying, you don't miss your well until the water runs dry. But the reason why you miss it is because you took that water for granted that was already there, and you didn't get a chance to appreciate the water while it was there. That water was there, it was clean, and it was cold. Miss Geraldine said, most of the time, we do it towards our spouse from a marriage standpoint. Yes. And I'm glad you said that, Miss Geraldine. I'm glad you said that. Many times we take those closest to us for granted. We take our spouses for granted. We take our parents for granted. Some of us take our jobs for granted. We take those things that consistent, that we always know they're going to be there. We take them for granted, right? And what happens is this: at the beginning, we appreciate it, but then we become accustomed to it. That's why I said we allow ourselves to get to a space where we're comfortable. Our wife wash our clothes. Our wife not only wash our clothes, but our wife cook for us, or we make sure our kids are good and we make sure they're taken care of. And people always know that they can call on you and they can depend on you. And then next thing you know, instead of appreciating the sacrifices, they just expect you to do it. And guess what? That right there is a great danger to many relationships, especially many marriages, because we don't realize the damage that we're conflicting on the other person by not being appreciative. You know, those people aren't. Many people don't do things for you and expecting you to just clap and celebrate them for every small thing. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am speaking towards is the consistency, like those consistent things. If you have a significant other that you know consistently provides for you, right? They're not expecting you to celebrate them, but they also too don't expect you not to appreciate that they do that for you. The same thing, if you got consistency of somebody always being there emotionally for you, always being there supportive for you, always being at your games, always being at your events, right? And and this is the thing, many people expect people to be there for them and do all of those things, and they expect those. They become so comfortable with they expecting those people to be there, but won't turn around and reciprocate that same energy. And when it becomes to them providing that same energy, they refuse to do it because they don't realize that they are prideful, too prideful and selfish. They don't realize that. Ms. Jared said, I agree with God as well. And my Mayada, she said, amen, great analogy with the well. Yes, we don't miss the well. We don't care about the well because it's always there. It's always there. And one of the things that made me shift how I think on a lot of things is I had a life-changing experience on one of my deployments. I was deployed to Iraq in 2006 to 2007, and this was during the surge. You're talking about the surge in Baghdad, and I can remember being driving down to an area where the sector where our guys had to cover, and I can remember seeing families who built their houses in landfills. They literally built their houses in landfill where the kids was outside playing in the landfill. They had cows, had dogs, had a cow, had a dog, and they built their house in the landfill because that was safe for them to be. And I thought about the fact that even in the States, we're flip out if we don't have Starbucks or Wi-Fi or Chick-fil-A. And that made me to become grateful and be grateful for what I have or what we have access to. That really made me become grateful. That made me to look at life differently. That made me to understand things like, dang, to be more appreciative of the things that we have access to. And that's good because many people don't realize or choose not to be appreciative of the things that they have access to because they always had access to it. They always had access to people. They always had access to the consistency. They always had access to a certain level of living. So they become accustomed to that and they begin to feel entitled that it should always be provided for them and not understand the sacrifice or the work behind that was put behind even enabling them to operate in it. And that's a dangerous place to be in when you are that person and you become comfortable and not be able to pull yourself back to be like, dang, wait a minute, I'm provided this, right? And understand that the blessing that it is that you have access to the things that you have access to, because everybody then don't have that same level of access that you have. And once I'm telling you, it hit different when you lose that access because you didn't appreciate it. It hit different. It hits different, like the kids say. It hits different. It's something that when you look at it, it is a very humbling experience. I'll say this again. I'll say it again. It is a very humbling experience to lose something of value because you chose not to appreciate it. It is a very humbling experience. And many people it happen to, and they walk around and they try to present this facade like nothing, it don't bother them, but oh, it hits difference when you had access to something that was consistent. You had access to something that was good for you. You had access to something that was beneficial for you, but you in turn did not appreciate it, right? You took it for granted. You became too comfortable and now you lost it. Oh, it hit different. It's humbling. And many people have to live with that regret, live with that guilt of being humble because they didn't appreciate the very thing they were blessed with. They had to lose it in order to realize what they have. And what the reality is, you don't have to lose in order to realize. If you take the time to say, you know what, I'm going to appreciate, I'm going to honor and appreciate what I already got. I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to take the time to acknowledge, what you actually have. And it does not take much. It doesn't take much. But the problem is we don't want to do the work. It doesn't take much to appreciate people. It doesn't take much to be grateful. It doesn't take much, but it takes a lot to be ungrateful. It takes a lot to get to a space to where you're too comfortable, where you begin to take people for granted. But it doesn't take much to be appreciative. And a selfish person would feel like somebody desire to be appreciated as if they want to be validated. But you're not desiring or seeking to be validated, right? You just want to be appreciated. And appreciated, watch this, appreciation and celebration doesn't always need to be the same thing. And I want people to really understand that, because some people, when you selfish, you will feel like somebody expecting to be appreciated is they want to be celebrated. No, they just want to be appreciated. And appreciation is just saying, thank you. It's just simple as that. Body language and all. It is as simple as a simple thank you. Not, praise and all this. Oh, you did this for me. Oh, this, that, and the third. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm speaking towards is somebody that generally want to be appreciated. They don't necessarily want to be celebrated. They don't necessarily want to be celebrated, but just appreciate it. Hey, a simple thank you go a long way. A thank you in your actions. You know what? Appreciate, and I think I can break this down a little bit better. But appreciation in the aspect of what I'm speaking on is appreciation looks like it can be a thank you, right? It can be consideration. It can be a change in your behavior to reciprocate the same energy, right? It could be you being consistent, you being considerate to the other person. It can be you making time for the other person. It can be you are meeting the needs of that person when they need them to be met. You know what I'm saying? That is showing appreciation, especially when somebody is doing certain things for you. But a lot of times we don't like to reciprocate because we're selfish and we're looking about what we can get. And it becomes about us. We make everything about us. Everything is about us when we don't, and we're actually the ones that's not doing anything. We're the ones that's not putting forth any effort to show anything, but we expect other people to do it. No, it's just appreciation. Hey, mama, how you doing? My mama said, she said, good evening. Good evening to you. And I my mama said WIIFM. And WIIFM stands for what's in it for me, right? What's in it for me? And Ms. Geraldine said, right, especially when you have done over and over and accolades goes to others like you haven't done anything. Yes, ma'am. Facts. Facts. You know, I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Geraldine. It is so hurtful to the people that are consistent in your life, the people that sacrifice for you, the people that do for you and have been consistent in your life. It is extremely hurtful to them to see you give praises to somebody else for the very same thing that they consistently do for you, and you never open your mouth or fix your mouth to give the same praises to those people that are closest to you. That is a very hurtful thing. And it's hurtful because it's like almost like the audacity of you to take the time to recognize and acknowledge somebody else for doing the very same thing that I always do for you, but you can't fix your mouth to say thank you. You can't fix your mouth to offer the same level of praise and appreciation to me but you do it freely to other people. That's a hurtful thing, man. That's a hurtful thing. And if you ever had to walk through that, that's a hurt that it's hard to describe. That's a hurt that is hard to imagine how deep that go. And that's one of those hurts that cut deep, because it's like it's offensive. It is offensive. It's offensive because it's like, dang. That's why it's offensive, because it's like, dang, you choosing to do that, but it's like, who am I to you? And that's why it's more than anything. That's why it's offensive. It's like, who am I to you? And that's something that a lot of people have dealt with, and I know that that's something that I know I personally dealt with, but that's something that I know I've personally been guilty of. And that's why we got to be sure that we remain cognitive. And that's talking about learning to avoid the dangers of getting too comfortable, right? You know, some of the ways of not getting too comfortable and avoiding the dangers of getting too comfortable and taking people for granted. Some of the ways of doing it is being self-aware, like routinely taking inventory of who you are and what you are actually doing, right? And then watching what people are doing for you. Watching what people are doing for you, right? I'm not talking, and I'm not talking about just the stuff that we commercialize. I'm talking about the considerations. How considerate is somebody of you? What is somebody doing for you? How are they thinking of you? How are they setting things aside? How are they observing the things that you want? And what are the efforts they are doing towards meeting those needs or meeting your needs? And if you got people that consistently do that, you do need to pay attention to that. Don't be that person that feel like you can always burn bridges and say whatever you want and think you're going to come back. No, that ain't how that work, boo-boo. That ain't how that work. That's not how that work. Because a lot of people, what they do is cool as long as they get in their way. But then when you call them accountability for them to do it for you, guess what? Now they want to have an attitude. No, ain't no attitude on this one. No, you need to be held accountable because you didn't receive. You didn't receive. And you make it all about you, while at the same time don't even realize just how selfish you are as a person. But you make it about everybody else, all because you don't want to deal with yourself. And many of us don't want to deal with ourselves because we don't want to face ourselves in the mirror. And we walk around as old grown adults in age, but mentally we're still children because we are too afraid to address and deal with the reality of us and take a look in the mirror and say, guess what? I got to deal with me, and I need to deal with me, because if I don't deal with me, I know I'm the problem. And I don't want to do that. That's the reality is. A lot of people just don't want to do. They don't want to do that. And you know what? That's on them. That ain't on. And I've learned to cut those people off. I've learned to cut those people off in my life because those people are not value added to your life. Those are the people. Yeah, be careful around people who refuse to show appreciation and who consistently show you that they don't value you and they take what you do for granted. Be careful around them people. Cut them people off. Cut them off, because many of those people will never get to a space as to even know or see what is being done for them until either it's cut off or they lose it, right? And sometimes even when lose it, they won't even acknowledge what they contributed to losing it. So guess what? Cut them folks off, man. Cut them people off. Don't allow them people to stay in your life and drain you and feel like they can treat you and say whatever. Cut them folks off, because guess what? They'll need you well before you'll need them. And I promise you on that one. I promise you on that one. That's something, and like I said, you can take that to the bank. You can take that to the bank. Mama said, but one thing for sure, every seed planted grows, and every seed planted shall be harvested. Yep. You uh you have to and that's true because you reap what you sow. And it's not hard to be appreciative. It's not hard to be appreciative. It's not hard at all. Nothing is really hard, but it's not hard to be appreciative. You just got to want to do it. You just have to have a heart to say, you know what? It's easy for me to be appreciative when when I am a giver at nature. And I understand what givers, being a giver, how considerate you are of others. And I had to realize that everybody don't approach life the same way I approach it. But I'm not going to allow that to impact how I operate. I just know how to manage the access that I give to people. Because sometimes as givers, you got to realize that just because you are a giver, some people will just take and they will never reciprocate that energy because they're not wired that way. And either what you can do is you can either continue to give them free access to you, or you can say, I'm going to limit my access that I give to these people that I know won't reciprocate the same energy or effort towards me. They just won't do it. And guess what? I'm not upset. I've learned to not to be upset about it. I learned to let things be, but I also learned to let people be, but I also learned to remove myself from those situations. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Because I would tell you, stop carrying that dead weight of carrying on people who won't appreciate you in your life. Stop carrying that dead weight. Because as we continue to carry that dead weight, what we'll realize is that dead weight is not doing us no good. Those people will let you go to your grave, run yourself to your own grave, and still won't appreciate what you do for them. Stop carrying that dead weight. Learn to avoid those pitfalls and not don't get too comfortable with people and take people for granted, but don't allow somebody else to get too comfortable with you and take you for granted. Listen, you can't control what somebody else do, but you sure can control the access that they have to you. So you better exercise your right to control that access that people have to you. If they can't show you that they appreciate you and consist and not take you for granted and appreciate you and your efforts and the things that you consistently do for them. Because if they can't take the time to recognize what you do for them, guess what? That's on them. That there's something wrong with them. Miss Geraldine said, I appreciate you for giving us what we need as we need it. Son, I needed this. Oh, you welcome, Miss Geraldine. You welcome. You're so welcome. To God be the glory. Hey, hello, how you doing, Valencia? Good to see you. Good to see you. But yeah, I mean, and this is not a speaking from a bad place or anything. And it could be many times it is family. I ain't just talking about this people. I'm speaking on when I'm talking about this. I'm talking about people that people that and that's just what it is. Because the people that are gonna take you for granted the most, the people that's not gonna appreciate you, the people that's going to just get too comfortable with you, most of those people are going to be people that either going to be you're in a relationship with, a marriage. They're either going to be kids, they're going to be families, friends, co-workers. They're going to be people that you are close to. They're going to be the ones that take you for granted. And we got to get to a space to where we understand that, hey, once you show me who you are, I'm going to limit my access that you have to me. And that's protecting yourself, because many of us, we get so frustrated about how somebody else is treating us, but we continue to give them access to us. You control your access. Cut them folks off. Cut them off, and you'll be all right. But cut them off so that you can be at peace and stop carrying that dead weight. But man, hey, thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy. I appreciate it. Episode 146. We've been back in this thing, man. I'm truly proud and appreciative of just keeping this going and being obedient. And my prayer and my hope is that this is helpful and it can be helpful to somebody. I don't have all the answers. I don't. Try to be as transparent as possible and have conversations that I feel are necessary, that people are dealing with things, but we're not having those conversations. And it's so easy to have those, the typical us versus them with man and women conversations and all this, but I want things that we all deal with. And I'm talking about conversation that was about healing. You know what I'm saying? But we have to learn, we can learn to avoid the dangers of getting too comfortable and taking people for granted just by simply being grateful and appreciative. Just by simply being grateful and appreciative. And watch this. I can be content and still want more. I can be grateful and still look for something better, but I can appreciate what I got right now. Think about that. And that's what I'm speaking on. You know, and really be appreciative. Like, think about just if we take inventory and we fully take inventory for what the people in our lives and what they do. And I'm speaking on this. I'm speaking on this because I think many times we get confused on things, right? And I want to say this because I really want this to be helpful to somebody, right? When you learn to truly be appreciative of people, right? The relationship that you have with that person can dissolve. Like, you may be in a relationship, you may be married, you may be you know, in a committed relationship with somebody, and your relationship, you all being together, may dissolve, but you still can be appreciative of what that person did for you. You can be appreciative of what you learn from that person. You can be appreciative of the experience, because everything is not always negative. And when we mature enough, when we get to a space where we're mature enough, once we become grateful and appreciative, we'll realize that a lot of the relationships that we have just with people in general, there's a lot of lessons that we miss because we're not grateful or appreciative. But if we go back and be grateful, we'll realize that I can learn a lot from my experiences. And that's at a space of maturity. That, hey, I could be mad at what you may have done, but still appreciate what you did for me. Think about that. I could be mad at how you treated me, but I can still, in this one instance, but I still can be appreciative for who you've been to me. And that's getting into a mature space. That's getting to a mature space. So I hope this was helpful to you guys. Thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy. Make sure you go and follow me on the social media. I got at The Conversation 98 on YouTube, The Conversation 98 on Instagram, at 98 Conversation on Twitter, on Facebook, The Conversation 98, and on TikTok at The Conversation _98. I appreciate you guys more than what you know. Thank you guys so much for rocking with your boy. You guys have a great and wonderful evening. God bless.